So the coronavirus. Germany are cancelling their football. Italy is locked down. Spain obviously are taking contingency plans. Ireland as well. Why haven't we in the UK actually followed the lead of the clubs and the countries around Europe?
It's so confusing, isn't it? I mean, it was only 3 weeks ago that Italy overnight, and they said we need the games to be behind closed doors the next day. They're probably around the same number of cases we've got now, but need some restrictions. We don't seem to be paying the lessons or learning the lessons from the other countries at the moment. Very cautious road. Maybe in the long term it's proved justified, but it seems a time for extreme caution.
Are we scared? Are you concerned, first of all?
Me personally, no. I'm not overly concerned yet. Obviously, the numbers are rising, so it's becoming a bigger and bigger concern day by day, week by week. But I'm not a fan of this government at all. I'm not. But I've actually kind of pushed back a little bit on what Rob said then. I think the government actually, for once, has got the balance right of informing and letting people know what's going on without scaring too much. I think they've struck that balance, I think, quite well, personally. I think we're going to territory now whereby the numbers are rising, and there's talks we're hearing about from various bodies, be it within sport and government itself, about what the next stage is going to be. But I would say, at the moment, I think the government has got the balance just about right in terms of not scaring but not uninforming either.
Are they right not to cancel the sport? Lots of people travelling on tubes, lots of people going to grounds with the Cheltenham Festival is on. Are they right not to cancel those large gatherings of people?
I think they have to consider, we have to remember that sports, this is football, horse racing, is a multi-billion-pound industry. There's a lot of money at stake here, so they're cautious in the sense that they have to think about people's safety first and foremost. People's lives are more important than money, but it's a lot of money involved here, so they can't just, I think, decide to cancel sporting events just like that. They have to think about the implications that cancelling will bring. I think we will see events cancelled. I think that will happen, but I think up until now they've been correct, I would say, in just waiting a little bit longer before they make that call.
Troy, I think we should have cancelled already. I think we're prioritising money over people's health.
I was just going to say that. Actually, the way that we're saying this is that actually these sporting events, these multi-billion-dollar sporting events, need more than our health. I don't understand that. I mean, the Italians have been a little bit up and down. You know, they cancel big games and then actually they want to put them on the next day. Now, obviously, they've taken the steps to play behind closed doors, as they have in Spain. We have not actioned anything at the moment. And it's great everyone talking about it, but I think most importantly, it will send a message that we do consider the health of everybody, more than over a financial gain. And yes, it's difficult when the clubs and everyone involved in a game of football. It's vast. It's the financial streams just for the football clubs themselves. But then there should be a beneficiary fund to support all that in case in case they need it.
And so much is about messaging. I mean, a lot of people question why stop the handshakes when players are still hugging and embracing after games or while scoring goals. I've been told it's a public health message. When you see players not shaking hands, it's sending out a message you shouldn't do that in wider society. I mean, it's a minor thing, but it shows you.
It's a confusing message though, Rob, isn't it? Because we are saying you cannot. So as they walk past, we're all having a little chuckle up at the start, aren't we?
Yeah.
As they walk past each other, looking at each other, eyeballing each other, we're all having a little chuckle up. They can't shake their hands no more. But then ultimately, we're seeing them embrace each other at the end of the game.
Ronaldo did an air handshake when they were still playing at the weekend.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they wanted Cheltenham to go ahead this way.
Yeah.
I've got to think that's going to be the reason. So many thousands, horses coming in, big for so many different parts of the industry. And you wonder, did it factor in? Could they pay the price?
We all go to press conferences, we all go to, you've had the Raise Your Game conference, you work for Channel 4 News, Associated Press, myself with the Daily Mirror. Are you worried? Are you concerned?
I mean, you change sort of things, a lot of alcohol wash, but I've been around in the last week to Amsterdam for UEFA meetings, to Belfast for FIFA IFAB meetings, and you're not really changing what you're doing, you're aware around you, but you can't really stop it. I mean, once we lost a lot of it, a lot of people, it's mild symptoms. It's only the elderly largely that get the most severe symptoms. In China, based on what we're told, a lot of tens of thousands have recovered from it, so it's not some mass fatal virus, but there is a public health issue with it.
Aren't we talking about just natural cleanliness. You know, I keep hearing this, oh, make sure you wash your hands and sing happy birthday and all that and the other. Who doesn't wash their hands anyway? But there's obviously the mass hysteria about being cleansing. I don't understand that, because shouldn't that be in every single one of our makeups anyway?
We go through sort of times when we have all the alcohol washes everywhere, like with SARS a few years ago and H1N1, but then they disappear and people stop using them.
It's remarkable, and I think that the idea that you have to tell grown men and women how to, perform basic hygiene is just remarkable.
Well, it's exposing who the nasty people are. You know, it really is. You're really seeing now.
Say that, but
You know, but we're all thinking it. You're really seeing now. So what? You don't wash your hands normally after you? Do you know what I mean? Just on a slightly side note, I'm always, whenever there's a big story in the news that's government related, I always look to what else is happening. So this is obviously a massive global story at the moment, and it's getting the press that it probably should get. But this is, with my cynical hat on, an opportunity, I think, for government to slip through other things while our attention's on this.
Yes.
What else is going on over there? So I'm always kind of...
Such as?
I don't have any examples, but I'm just always very, very cautious of, this is dominating the news, the papers and on TV. If I was a government, I would try and see this opportunity to try and, while people are distracted over here, get things done over here that people forget about.
It's on the media side, so it takes the heat out of certain stories naturally. So momentum on things like the Pretty Patel story. It's not the government's doing anything to necessarily stop it, but the media as an industry is focused on
100%. 100%.
Obviously, questions should Cobra be called more, and come on the back of the floods as well.
No, I totally agree. I think that if you look at all of the different stories that Boris Johnson in particular has been under pressure about, this suddenly everyone's not talking about those things, and everyone's talking about pasta and hand wash and
toilet roll
and all of the stories.
But we as a media can choose to still focus on a wide variety of stories. It's like,
and we must.
Why have we bought into? I mean, you made the point about the public health message, but I still don't buy that in so much as it's a contact sport. It's only a matter of time before a player reveals he has the coronavirus.
We've had it in rugby with the Scottish women's national team.
Exactly. So why are we as a media buying into this whole idea that if you don't shake hands, then that's okay, then we can carry on regardless?
I don't think we can. I mean, the fact you've seen, I think if we do start to play games behind the closed doors, it is legitimate, say, cinemas, shopping centres, pubs, because a lot of people will go to pubs. Liverpool win the title in the next week or so, and say Anfield is closed, nothing pointing to that yet. Fans are going to spill out into the streets, they're going to go into pubs if they're still open, and surely that raises as much health concerns as being in a stadium.
A lot of pressure on the authorities on a number of things over the past week or so, not least the racism scandals involving Leeds and Charlton. Charlton obviously got other issues ongoing at the moment, but this last week a big one. I know all of you feel very strongly about this and the handling of it. So I'm going to start from the beginning. The Leeds goalkeeper, Kiko Casilla, banned for 8 games for using the N-word towards the Charlton forward Jonathan Lecco. Lecco's come out and he's been very critical of a number of agencies, the FA, the PFA, Kick It Out, and so let's start there. Is he right to be critical of the way that the whole thing was handled, first of all?
I think one point on top of it, it's an 8-game ban. Let's not forget that 2013,
is that enough?
UEFA brought in a minimum 10-game ban, and it was never adopted by the FA at the time. They went for the newer 5-game minimum from FIFA, and it seems to have, the question why was that immediately introduced across Europe, so I think that's the key thing, the fact we're not opposing that. And then the wider aspects of the case, the sense that players do feel at times let down by the authorities.
I think they do.
Just on that point, the independent panel went for 8 games. The FA pushed for 10, but the independent panel stuck with 8.
Why do you think they did that?
If I knew that, I'd be on the independent panel. I haven't got a clue, but ultimately it's the FA's, from what Rob's saying, it's now the FA's own fault that they're trying to push for a 10-game ban when they turned it down as a mandatory structure, when they could have done.
The key thing is people say, we need more black people on these panels. There was a black guy on that panel, and it didn't seem to make any difference. And it makes me angry because I think that we still are not treating racist abuse as the worst thing that could happen to a footballer in the year 2020.
When was it? The other a goalkeeper was banned last week for biting. 6-match ban. The whole banning and the highlight of the situation was done within a week. You know, Jonathan Leko's had to wait 22 weeks for an outcome that he doesn't feel just about, but also for the support that he didn't receive. And obviously we were on the back end of that support, you know, lack of support apparently as well.
Hang on a minute. So Jonathan Leko's statement says that we didn't get any support from Kick It Out. My understanding is that Kick It Out got in touch with him about a week after it happened, less than a week after it happened.
Not directly, but we followed the process, which is to contact the football club. We've contacted 2 different people at the football club to highlight that support and also support to the club as well. I'm not.
I've got to interrupt you and say I'm annoyed by the fact. You can say it. I'm annoyed by the fact that the club hadn't seen fit to come out and say, actually, Leko's got that wrong, or even looked at that statement and corrected it and made clear that Kick It Out.
Well, the statement went out via obviously his parent club now, West Brom, because that's where he's back. I would imagine that Charlton would have known anyway. Your disappointment is mirrored with my anger around this whole situation. I don't believe that the club worked in his best interest, if you want me to be totally honest. I think the club were a little bit arrogant in thinking that they could deal with this.
West Brom?
Charlton.
Sorry.
Did they let him know that actually the potential of this would be that he'd be spending 5 months, 6 months nearly trying to deal with this situation, in this case? You know, we know what happens in these situations. We know it's never going to be a very quick turnaround. Does the football club know? Have they given him the best possible advice? Or have they actually given him the fact that we haven't heard from Kick It Out? We haven't heard from the PFA. Ultimately, it's not about accusing people, it's about Jonathan Leko. And it's about what the lad, unfortunately, has said in his statement, and that should be raised amongst football. But is Jonathan Leko a big enough footballer for it to cause a stir that it should do? So I guarantee if that was one of the top 6 players, there'd be reviews, there'd be statements, there'd be emergency meetings, but this is Jonathan Leko.
Well, that for me answers your second question. It's because football doesn't care about racism. I've read articles that you've written and I've seen many interviews that you've done. The crux of this is football does not care about racism. And we need to be honest about that. Let's stop beating around the bush. The answer is football, because if football did care about racism, this would have been sorted a long time ago, not just Leko, but racism in general. Other sports do not have this problem. Football does not care about it. So that's the first thing. In answer to your first question, has he been failed by the authorities? Yes, he has, including Kick It Out. But Troy has explained the process of what happened there and why that's happened. This for me goes back to the point that, again, we've all raised so many times, that the emphasis now has to be on the players to take control of this. It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate the players are the ones that now have to deal with the problem that's been placed upon them, but the authorities won't. No. So if you're not being protected by the authorities, protect yourself. Protect yourself.
Right. I think you're absolutely right, and I think that once players start to become more empowered, then they will use their platforms, their individual platforms, to speak out about it. Because we keep getting told that players have to rely on the authorities, but the authorities are themselves hiding away when the spotlight is on them. How many of the authorities came out once Jonathan Leko issued that statement and said, hands up, we're wrong? What have the FA said?
I mean, obviously, they just rely on that verdict that comes out rather than using it as a platform to discuss more. And obviously the familiar thing we see in many of these verdicts, obviously for legal reasons, is they make clear this was like a singular one-off racist incident, and it makes clear to say the person is not racist, as we see obviously in many of the verdicts. But when you say, does football really care? It doesn't want to ask the challenging questions. It wants the easy outcomes, often the simple conferences, the glossy press release, the hashtag, the easy campaign, rather than actually getting to grips with the issue, often uncomfortable moments when it's sort of challenging itself, you know, whether it's gatherings of UEFA and FIFA, yet they're too quick to maybe, you know, celebrate a campaign or something, a generic equality campaign. How many sort of events have we been to where we don't really know what they've actually achieved? And
I think that we've all been proponents of the idea that players should walk off pitches, but a friend of mine a few weeks ago made the point to me as to why he thinks players are reluctant to do that. And his theory was that if you're a sportsman of that level, in particular Premier League level, even Championship, whatever, the competitive nature that you have within you makes you just want to continue to fight on the pitch in terms of keep on playing. It's within you to just keep playing, not give up, because that's what's driven you to become a Championship or Premier League football player. Now, whether that's right or wrong is a personal thing, but it was an interesting theory that he made me realise why didn't walk off? I would. But I'm not of that competitive level, so maybe...
Marega didn't want to at Porto. He wanted to leave.
That's one.
Balotelli wanted to.
Balotelli wanted to leave.
That's two.
Yeah, but they still wanted to leave.
They did.
There was lack of support from every single one around them, from their teammates to the opposition to the officials to management. So yes, that competitive nature is there, and I understand that. I'm not having a go, Jordan.
No.
You know, ultimately, enough is enough. But now they're being penalised for trying to take the act of walking off a pitch because their teammates want to win the game, because the opposition are now looking at them as weak, because their manager cannot believe that you're going to leave his team exposed. So those images, I thought the Porto situation was the worst situation I've ever seen.
Very sad.
Ever seen. No one cares about his welfare, no one cares about what's happened.
We've got a game to win.
You are stopping a football match. What are you doing? At that moment, it's everybody against the one.
See, I slightly disagree. I slightly disagree. I mean, what makes that worse than the Balotelli incident, where Balotelli's trying to go off and players are holding him back?
Yeah.
I've seen, what makes that worse than Suleimantari getting booked after he walked off?
Darren, that's a personal thing for me. I've watched 5 minutes of that footage now, and I don't believe he's in a good mental state. I'm not saying that any other player is, but I'm looking at him and I'm worried for him. You know, and the messages that he was getting during that long walk were horrendous. By the way, the club then puts out something that said, we don't condone racism.
He completely ignored what happened.
Exactly.
It was shocking, that statement.
Right.
Particularly when it took the Prime Minister or the President of Portugal the next day, at least they did speak out. The club's reaction is so often timid and not even addressing the issue directly.
So what's the answer? What do we think? We've been beating the drum of players walking off for a long time now. That's not happening anytime soon. I take this case in Porto happened, but Euros are coming up, the Premier League climax is coming up. If this happens again, and it will happen again, what do we want to happen?
Well, you're saying if it happens again, Jermaine McGlashan at Ebbsfleet was abused by Hartlepool fans, he says, at the weekend. I haven't seen too much being reported, so we're all saying what the solution is. We are the solution. We want diversity in the media, we have it. We have to use our platforms to shout louder about these stories, the ones involving the less fashionable players, the ones involving the less fashionable clubs. When we do that, then we don't complain about these stories. We amplify the voices of
But I would argue this subject as media peak. I'm not sure much more we can do to make these players realise you have the power. You now have to. We've publicised it. We've put it on front pages, back pages, podcasts, radio shows, TV shows. We've done almost all we can do as media members of the media. I don't think we can do much more.
So you and I agree on this.
I disagree. I absolutely disagree. I think we pick and choose as a media when we want to highlight stories. I think the bigger the story, the better for the media. This is me, and I'm not in the circle that you guys are in. The bigger the story, the better it is for our back pages, or very rarely do we see them on a front page unless it's Raheem Sterling. We're getting players up and down the country victimised. Jermaine said to me, I'm the only one that heard it. Why is he the only one that heard it? Because he's got a unique tone to listen to. The linesman was next to him, the physio was next to him. He's adamant with what he's heard. But let's think about the next step. The backlash that he has received now on social media because he dared to call it out for what it was, leaves him wondering again, like Jonathan Lecco, whether we would ever do anything like that again, whether we would ever call it out again.
Which is the sad thing, really.
Back of Antonio Rudiger, who is convinced he heard abusive comments at Spurs. We could go all the way back to Anton Ferdinand when he complained about the racism at QPR, and we see time and again players who put their heads above the parapet and end up getting abused or having the spotlight turned on them, where people say, if you're found to be wrong, you should be banned for 5 games. You can see why players like Lecco decide it just isn't worth the aggravation.
I mean, I didn't think the Spurs statement went far enough when basically there's no evidence on Rudiger. It could have said more in terms of, just backing his right to make the complaint, encouraging anyone to come forward to make the complaint. It was dealt with quite quickly. Interestingly, some minutes came out this week from a Spurs supporters group meeting, of which one of the club officials was asked about it from the fans, and in this they were talking again about the proper protocols weren't followed, and what we got the multiple announcements, and then we discovered from the Premier League they don't follow the FIFA protocol. So again, this sort of confusion of what processes are in place, if even the club's confused what you do in that sort of incident.
Just on the back of that, Rob, at Hartlepool, where the PA announcement was made in a bid to follow the protocol, the fans booed it. So that tells you what supporters think of this so-called protocol, and why you're right about player empowerment. Because and there is footage available for you to see, when they make the announcement to stop being racially abusive, the fans boo it, and then they jeer it, and then they start shouting cheat, directing it at McGlashan.
Well, it's interesting, the Hartlepool post-match, their statement, they published one on the website. It talks about sort of equality and things, but it actually referred to that instance, it didn't actually state what happened, which is actually, why does it not spread to the wider world as much? Well, actually the statement was pretty vague. There's fewer journalists there, local radio were there, so there was a lot of it was sort of filtering out from there. But then, Rudiger the other week faced booze from Spurs fans.
Yeah.
At least Hartlepool put a statement out. Ex-Fleet haven't to protect their players. Apparently a BBC News journalist also called, so the BBC Tyneside I think it was, also called Jermaine a cheat, because he reckons he didn't hear anything. Everyone's got this unique tone of not hearing stuff. No one wants it on their plate. So all of a sudden now, just think about this, he is now in the middle of that football pitch with every single person judging him. Because he's dared to call it for what he believes it is. That's where black players now are in this challenge and battle, and I totally agree with Jordan. Walk, and if you walk and your teammates don't want to walk with you, leave them there. I don't care anymore, because Cecilia's got a band that is the same band that Luis Suarez got 8-9 years ago. The same band. So how far have we moved on? Where have we gone? Why are we still administering the same punishment that someone received 8 years ago? Why are we not now taking this to 3 months? 6 months, you're not coming back until.
This is what I talk about football not caring. If football says, it's very simple for me. Football said, if we find you guilty of racially abusing any player within the football arena, you will be banned for 2 years. I guarantee you, less players will do it.
I mean,
in the back of my mind, if I say this thing, 2 years, that seems very extreme. But I think we need extreme measures.
And fewer fans would do it as well.
Of course I would.
I think that he didn't know what it meant, that thing.
So,
Do you know what I mean?
that was insulting and embarrassing.
and the verdict did actually basically say he was making it up, he was coming up with these excuses, and it did seem pretty plausible. I mean, what I would do, with so many of these instances, whether UEFA, Premier League or domestically, the official Twitter accounts of the bodies promote, as it were, these instances, highlight them, put the video up, use it, don't just link to the nice announcements, show it and spread it. Whether it's the the in-game announcement or
So make
it helps
public.
Yeah.
Create an environment where when you're in that,
And you
feel
highlight
shame.
everyone. Yeah.
I just want to go back to what you said about I've never heard of it. I just think that some of these excuses to try and get out of offending.
Those excuses
Work van itself.
It's not punishment to the footballer. We'll back the excuse.
Yeah.
We'll actually, help the player create the narrative that will get him off of this situation. There's multiple people here responsible for him saying that.
They don't respect black people. If you can let your player come up and say something like that and insult all of our intelligences, you don't respect us.
I mean, it's a bit like when Hennessy claimed he hadn't heard of World War II, even though someone found a tweet about World War I at some point. Something like that. And
Hennessy said
he hadn't heard of the Holocaust, wasn't it? Yeah.
I mean,
It would be interesting to see what training he went through, and actually, that to actually show that might send a message out as well. Yeah.
I just don't think that, as you said, it's so disrespectful to Jewish people, to black people, to everybody in general, to melt that as a defence, to try and get off being punished in any given situation.
It's mocking all of us, saying I'm not only going to deny this happened, but I'm going to give you an excuse that is so stupid and still get away with it, but what can you do?
Yeah.
I just wish a lot of our players here were more emboldened to speak out like a lot of the American athletes
The
are.
game doesn't allow them to, does it? The game comes down on them. The game decides that actually you need to shut up and not highlight this. So ultimately, the very fact
But they are the game. The Sterling or Pogba, they are the game. I think if Sterling or Pogba or Kante or these players came out, I'd like to think they would get backing from all the other high-profile
why
players.
should it
Because the
only
Premier
be
League-
them? Why can't it be a Lecco, a Glasson?
I agree, but I think set the tone at the top. If the top players come together, because they are the Premier League. If 4 or 5 of your biggest names in your league come out and talk about this issue, that the Premier League are in trouble.
We have an issue, Jordan, and this elitist issue. We have an issue, and we're compounding that issue by saying if the top players do. This country has an elite issue. Anything outside of the Premier League, anything outside of the top whatever, is dismissed as not important enough.
I'm not dismissing it, but I'm saying I think you're more likely to get to change top down rather than bottom up. I think you're more likely to make the authorities, well, we've got to do something here.
Well,
if your biggest names are rock and roll.
In 2020, they haven't changed yet. We've got a ban that's exactly the same as what it was in you know, I can't even count back 8-9 years ago. So actually, what does it matter?
I think it does matter. I think, like I said, the top 5 black players, or top 5 players in the Premier League period, all came out and said, we're not having this anymore. All tweeted, all really stuck it on the Premier League. I think the Premier League would have to have a crisis meeting.
If you went into a meeting with at Channel 4 and you said, I've got this player, he's been racially abused, he plays in League 2, would that get as much traction as if you came in and said, I've got this player who plays for Tottenham and he's been racially abused and they do a story on it?
Well, for our audience, for me, probably yes, because our audience isn't an out-and-out football fan. They wouldn't look at the difference between a Premier League Man United player and a League 2 player. So they probably would. Other outlets, maybe not. Maybe they do tier it as, nah, he's a big name, so we'll give that focus. Him, not so much. But for where I work, I reckon they would. I think our audience would give it the same reading.
Same question for the Associated Press.
Yeah.
Would a Tottenham player, sadly, being in this situation, resonate more with your audience than a player in League 2, League 1?
I mean, obviously there'd be more coverage if it's higher up, but actually we do now try to put something out on the lower league instances because we have the platform. You know, often relies on clear statements, so we can actually establish the facts quite quickly. You know, it should be more difficult lower down the leagues. I mean, there was one on the lower down the leagues, a member of the day, the Manchester Derby race a few months ago, and I was actually writing that actually at the Etihad, trying to pick up. I mean, I think what probably happens is, particularly internationally, because a lot of the news media is centred around the big countries like England. There's probably instances lower down the leagues in other countries that don't get covered. So you know, you don't get the full sense of the scale of the problem further down the leagues, maybe in France and Spain and other places.
The last point.
Sure, go
I know you dragged that out. Do you honestly think if a black player had done what Eric Dyer did last week? I'm sorry, do you honestly think if a black player climbed into the crowd, up all those steps to confront people, that he'd be now still putting on his training gear and going out to train without nothing? And by the way, I commend Eric Dyer.
I agree. I make him right.
Did the right thing.
I make him right.
For your point of value.
But if a black player in the Premier League or whatever those big leagues are that spout out all this crap about racism, if he walked into that crowd and did what he did, we've got a massive story. That will be front page, by the way. That will be front page. And first on every news outlet. That's the comparison. I'm happy to move on.
Let me stick with you. Your son
Yeah.
racially abused. I didn't even know this. Nor did you.
I didn't know, we didn't know, apparently the football club didn't know, but yeah, it was a steward at the football club that from the first game of the season at Everton, that threw the guy out and got him arrested.
The man was punished, obviously.
The man's been punished now,
criminal charges,
fine, banning order, etc. But I'm sorry, it's just not good enough that an individual who has been racially abused, whether he's my son or not, doesn't even know the abuse or the steps that are being taken, and the fact that the guy is now under a ban.
Troy, you have a Premier League, or your son's a Premier League player. Why do you not think he hasn't or didn't put out something more publicly?
Posted on social media. He supported the act and thanked the steward. One, for commending him for what he did, but two, for following through the steps that he did. And I think ultimately, without getting into a big story, that's what he wanted. That got massive pickup on social media, by the way. I don't think it got pick up behind closed doors, or if it did, they closed the door. But he did what I think any person would do, and that would be to congratulate and thank the person who brought this to the table.
See, what I would like then is for all the other Palace players and Premier League players to then retweet that tweet or back up that tweet and say, we as Premier League players stand with Troy Townsend, and Ross Townsend. Do you know what I mean? That's what I want.
That I get.
I mean, what's the coach about instance is the stewards.
Yeah.
Again, because so often the sense is, it's big stadium, loads of fans. It's very hard to go in to deal with it. And the question is, how many instances do you get where the stewards aren't?
Look, just to wrap up on this, I mean, I think just to go back to Lecco and his statement, I think we've got an FA who puts out statements and details about these big issues just before big nights of football. We don't have black referees, so we don't have people who are tuned to hearing the racism in the stadium. We got stewards who are taking it upon themselves, who often get paid a pittance, who are probably more alert to this kind of thing than some of the officials in the grounds. Some elements of our media, to be honest, was McGlashan well publicised? Was the Casilla story on every back page? It was on some, but not all. These are matters that should be on every back page. I know our media do care about it, but because of the times that the FA put these things out, some of the newspapers can't react to it.
7:30 Friday night.
It's very strategic.
Premier League games just about to kick off.
On the Tuesday night, it was put out at 5 o'clock ahead of a raft of big games.
I'm sorry. That is done on purpose.
Yeah, it's strategic.
You don't put a statement out at 7:35 because you didn't just find out that this information was going to come to light. So that shows me that actually there's a reason behind that, and the impact of that is that it doesn't get picked up in the manner that it should.
Suarez was maybe New Year's Eve.
New Year's Eve at 10 to 6, I remember being at a Chelsea game on that night and thinking, how can you release such a big, detailed clutch of information on New Year's Eve? But it almost, appeared, because I don't know that it was deliberate, but it appeared to be an attempt to bury it underneath the raft of big stories.
Even that, what you say, I don't know if it was deliberate. Even that makes a mockery of it all. That is deliberate. That, let's just say it as it is, that is deliberately timed to douse the fire. But obviously a Luis Suarez, no matter New Year's Day, Christmas Day, whatever, you get information about Luis Suarez, that's going to go wildfire. But a Casilla case with Lecco on a Friday?
Particularly, it's one of those cases that needs a lot of explanation because it's not been in the headlines for months, so
62
in
pages. That explanation. 62 pages.
And that came out a few days later.
Exactly.
As well.
Exactly.
We spent a long time on this, and obviously rightly so, because it's a big issue, it's an important issue, it matters to us all, and I'm sure we're going to be talking about it again. But let's just take in two more quick issues. Spurs. Who was to blame for the slump at Spurs? Mourinho, Pochettino, Daniel Levy, players.
Can all entities be to blame in a way? I mean, long-term mismanagement of the squad. Repeatedly Spurs not building from a position of strength and points they can kick on under Pochettino a number of times in January when they've been close to mounting a sustained challenge. But obviously that whole challenge always difficult to bring in someone who knows they're going to play second fiddle to Kane.
I don't agree with that. I don't buy into the whole we can't buy another top striker because they know they're playing. If I'm a top striker, I want to go Spurs because you know that Kane for some point in the season will be out injured, and when you're in, that's your chance to show. Okay, Kane's a big boy. We know about Kane. He's world class. We know this now. But you know what? I'm world class too.
Yeah.
I'm not so sure I always buy into the idea that buying a second top striker at Spurs is difficult.
I totally agree. Listen, you had Lacazette and you brought Aubameyang. You've got two top strikers. When Man United won the Champions League, they had four top strikers. There's Cole, York, Sheringham, Solskjaer.
They did play two up front, to be fair.
No,
but I agree. Yes, multiple strikers.
Different managers, different styles, different kind of Why would you? My question is, why would you as a top striker go there? Why would you, as a class striker who demands to be the one?
Because if you're a class striker, you back yourself. You back yourself.
Against who? The captain, the person who they hang everything on, the person who, even when he's injured, plays. Why would you back yourself?
Kane got into the first team lineup because he backed himself. He'd been scoring
he was
goals.
An academy player.
He was, and he had 2 senior players in front of him, Soldado and Adebayor. They weren't doing the business, and he was.
And obviously spent on Soldado, it was 30 million.
Well, absolutely, record signing.
But how much did they persist with Soldado before finally we can't do this no more? Adebayor, yeah, okay. But you're talking about a top striker. You guys are saying to me about the elite. Why would elite come in unless the only time I think elite is going to come is if you know that Harry Kane is going to go. Spurs only play one up top. They only ever done. They only play one up top with this manager.
Change the system.
Well,
change the system.
If you're going to.
Change the system.
Poch was never going to change his system.
No, he wasn't.
And Mourinho at the moment is gambling, just throwing dice out, and that's not his fault because half his squad is injured.
I think the negativity of Mourinho. That's just.
But isn't that justified in not so much as they can't defend at the moment because of that lack of investment in squad? They've conceded 2 or more goals in something like 10 or 12 occasions so far this season. The squad is. If you look at the Liverpool squad or the Liverpool team, 5 of the first 11 in the Spurs team are still there. None of the first 11 when Klopp arrived was still there. So that just tells you all you need to know about the lack of investment,
isn't it? Yeah, it's good planning. I agree with Rob about the investment, or the lack of investment, and then also the stopgaps. Even the stopgaps were not good enough. So you bring players in because you think, you know what, right, for 6 to 8 months they might do us a job. Even them after 2 or 3 games were not doing a job. And then they've got NG and players like that. Who's the other winger? Sorry, my brain's gone. But they were brought in as stopgaps as far as I'm concerned.
Nkudu?
Clinton and
Oh, no, sorry. Is Nkudu?
Nkudu.
I mean, you've got to now question Spurs scouting system as well. That has to come into play. Plus, for me, Poch stuck by too many of those players
Too long.
for far too long. That made the transition a lot harder. Those players became comfortable, those players became settled, and then those players renegated against Poch when he really needed them.
Very quickly around the table, could Man United pinch Kane this summer? If you're Kane, would you go?
If they have Champions League football, yes. But I think the Solskjaer factor cancels that out.
If I talk with my Roy Keane hat on, I mean, why wouldn't they go? But Man United are not that club. Why would Kane transfer Spurs to Man United? If he's going to go, he's going abroad.
It's got a lot of years left in that contract. It's about 4 years. It's going to take a lot of money to price away. United have the money, but still sends that Kane commitment to Spurs.
Okay. I want to move away from the football for a second because I don't know if you all saw the incident involving Joe Marler and Alan Wynne-Jones in the rugby, where Joe Marler grabbed Alan Wynne-Jones by the private parts. And it just set me thinking, because a lot of people defending Joe Marler for doing it, and it set me thinking, do we excuse the inexcusable in sport? You know, people say, well, what about Vinnie Jones grabbing Gaza? You know, we all laughed about that. That was in 1988, when we were still football was still turning up line dancing, bananas on the pitch, and players being racially abused, and you wouldn't get women working in football. It was still ludicrous for some people. So why are we using that as a reference point for this?
At least it's clear in the rule book. A 12-week ban as the entry point is the minimum. So at least it's set out as an offence, which is shows that it's taken.
Well, if it's set out as an offence, why are we discussing it?
Because there's been a big split over the weekend. No, there's a big split. Some people are being called snowflakes because they were saying no. A lot of people defending Marler was saying that he should not have been punished.
Yeah, but what Rob has said is the guideline, no? That is the standard, statutory, that is what you accept. There's nothing to discuss.
But we know what the statutory guideline is for racism, and you were saying that's not strong enough.
But they'll try to adopt there could be mitigating circuit, or attempted to put mitigating responses in to try to get it reduced in some way. But if that happened in a workplace, if it happened in a bar, if it happened in there would be intervention from authorities.
Well, I was going to ask in this instance, who's the victim here? Because I look at things, is there a victim here? If the person that received the groping, whatever, on the rugby pitch, was he complaining about it? Was he upset about it?
Yes.
He was?
Yes.
Okay, so if he feels like he was assaulted, because it's an assault, it's an assault, then it's clearly wrong, and there's rules in place to kind of negate to punish those actions. Fine with that, no problem. I think what you're alluding to is a wider problem of what this says about I don't know, how we treat people and double standards. Is that where you're kind of extrapolating it?
What I'm saying
beyond
is
sport?
that in football, in sport, because I'm thinking, for example, of Bernardo Silva, the banter between him and Bernard Mendy.
Okay, I'm with you.
Now, in a wider context, we'd all be appalled by that. But within the dressing room, that's just banter in inverted commas. And this has been seen as a kind of gamesmanship, the kind of gamesmanship you see in rugby all the time. That's accepted. They are insane, as to quote the phrase. So, does sport excuse the inexcusable?
Well, in this instance, no, because if he's been punished, then
sports fans. So sports fans try to. That's the thing. You know, the lack of seriousness is taken at times.
I think the question is what you raised earlier on. It's why is it acceptable in this workplace, the rugby field, but yet you wouldn't do it in the office? So what is it about sport that allows people to slap bums and groin areas and do you know what I mean? Kiss people on the pitch in a Manchester derby. What is it about sport that allows, in that working environment it's fine, but in any other working environment it's...
Well, Troy doesn't see a problem. Do you see a problem? I'm fascinated that you have to think about it.
I guess not, because I'm thinking about it. It doesn't overly bother me personally, especially if person has said I didn't like it, person B has been punished. I kind of see move on sort of thing.
Let's move on then. Where are we all wrong about Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? The fifth, looking good for a Champions League place at the moment. Obviously pending the City game, you can update us on that. Got United right to be patient with Ole, and where are we all wrong?
Go on, Rob.
The fans not patient enough. It was the fans at Old Trafford who were sort of, you know, some of them were chanting against him, certainly chanting against the board. I was at the game on Sunday and there was none of that.
Ed Woodward's still getting it, isn't he?
I didn't sense it in the stadium, so it shows it just takes a few results to turn it around and suddenly they sort of park that campaign to one side. 10 games unbeaten, only 2 games when they've actually conceded. That Burnley game was pretty damaging before this run started. I think there's only 2 other teams that got more points than him actually since he arrived. It's only City and Liverpool. So actually, if you look at his year or so, you know, it's had a really okay time.
So on that, a couple of things. You can't deny that in the last 10 games or so, they have got better. Are they better than where they were pre-Christmas? There was talk about them being relegated pre-Christmas, so it was never going to happen. But they were in that bottom 7, bottom 8. They're better now. That has to be acknowledged. He deserves credit for that. I don't support United, so I don't really give a damn. But my United friends who do give a damn, most of them are still of the mindset they don't want him in. They acknowledge that things have got mildly better, but their thing is, big picture, is this the guy that's going to take us anywhere near challenging a Klopp and a Pep Guardiola? And in their view, and I tend to agree, the answer is no. Fernandes has come in and made a blatant difference. But I don't think the quality.
Before him, because Fernandes was my big thing, and now he's got a nick.
No. I'll let you have Fernandes, and then I'll wield. But this league for me this season, the quality amongst the big boys is not particularly high. So Solskjaer is at the moment, to some degree, the best of the worst. Does that mean that when it really comes down to what United want to be, challenging for the big trophies, he's the guy to do that? I'm not so sure. And going back to your Kane question earlier on, I think that would be a question in my mind about joining United. Is Solskjaer a manager that I think I can look at, this guy can bring me to a Champions League final, this guy can compete with Klopp and Guardiola? I'm not so sure.
Is he a manager that any other team wants at the moment?
No.
I mean, the thing for me is Bruno Fernandes. That's the thing for me. If you ask for a key change in what has, you know, in United, he's been pivotal to that. You know, in the way that he's played, the way that he's got to grips with the Premier League, just like that.
But they'll turn him soon. And I tell you what, sorry, go on. I'll tell you why.
No, I agree with you.
They'll turn on him.
But he has changed it. That doesn't mean that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is now this great manager. You know, let's think about it. That Manchester derby, he played 5 at the back at home. If that's Jose Mourinho,
Battered.
he's getting absolutely slaughtered for lining up in that way. But it got them 3 points. And so all of a sudden, the deflection now is that we got 3 points. You know, so there's quite a lot. I agree with Jordan's point, though. Is he the man to take them back to where they believe they should be?
Listen, I agree with you both. I look at Avram Grant at Chelsea, and he's an example to tell you that if you have good players, they can make you look good.
They can sort of manage themselves.
Yeah,
their sense of under Grant. I mean, he didn't. You know, there were 2 goalkeeping handles on Sunday that led to both goals, and on such moments, the whole judgment of the manager.
They're not a good team. They're not a good team. What's their style? They're a counter-attacking team. No big club. Its identity, first and foremost, should be we're a counter-attacking team.
But let's be fair.
I'm sorry.
He's brought through some good young players. He's managed Mason Greenwood very well.
Yeah.
He's brought through Brandon Williams as well. Scott McTominay has made him better.
Yeah.
He's made Fred better.
All through had no option but to, because the financial status should be better, but they haven't trusted him with money.
Okay, but the fact is that without that money, he's got them up in fifth. I do believe they have been lucky that Spurs have been poor.
Arsenal are poor, Chelsea are up and down.
Manchester City
We
have been
highlight
very
that,
poor.
please. Arsenal have been.
I'm just,
We do Arsenal
they've been all right. They've been all right.
But you know, I think as far as United are concerned, how many players away from a title in this squad are there?
5.
5.
Title winning squad or title contending squad?
Okay, let's say winning.
5 for me.
Something close to that. I mean, they'll obviously deal with the Paul Pogba issue, which is sort of hanging over everything.
Is it an issue?
But it's not an issue. It's more a Mina Raiola issue.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. He's creating uncertainty, and the way he unsettles things at times from the agent side of things. You know, which is not good for.
But how many other players are they away?
Probably do need another striker.
Another striker.
I agree with that.
Defender.
It could be another goalkeeper down the line. You know, De Gea.
Well, they've got 3 good ones already.
But you know.
Romeo and Henderson.
Henderson is there. The
That's
question is
the
like,
world
will Henderson want to stay around if De Gea is?
No one's taking De Gea on that contract.
Yeah.
That's the issue they've got now. That contract is so big, they're going to struggle to get him off the wage books.
I don't think you stop being a top world-class goalkeeper overnight. And I think De Gea will get back to that, but I think he goes back to what you were saying about management. A good manager will make De Gea better. He will will get him back to where he should
I mean,
be.
there's still things like the whole strategy higher up.
Yes.
It seems to oscillate and change. 1 minute it's the director of football, then it's not, and things go okay for a few months, and then it's fine. We don't need one. We've got a structure in place, and that's where you end up with situations with bad deals being done.
I think Ole needs that support. I think if ever there was a director of football needed at Man United, it's now. And I think where we're questioning Solskjaer, a lot of that could be alleviated by having that person that you trust, not just appointed, by the way, as the director of football to help manage him through this process, get the right people in to help support the structure on the football pitch. Is McPherson still around?
Yeah, he's still there. Yeah.
Because he seems to have 1 minute exploded into the limelight as the person that was along with Solskjaer who was going to make United great again. Then he seems to, I don't know, to me.
They don't put the assistants in the media spotlight so often, so therefore. But Chelsea did it for a lot of times, didn't they?
Just finally say that I think for United fans that want to get back to winning titles, the recent run is a very perverse point, but the recent run that Solskjaer has got United on deserves credit, but in a way it's the worst thing that can happen to them because it's making the board think, I believe, you know what, maybe we can leave Poch alone because this guy next year we're improving, and I think that is in the long term is dangerous.
You actually answered my last question because I was going to ask you, if they finish in the Champions League places, would you keep Ole or replace him with Poch? Given that when Chelsea finished in the Champions League places under Ranieri, Abramovich bought the club and replaced him with a title-winning manager in Mourinho.
I would keep Ole if, and it's a big if, between now and May, there was a clear style of play for Manchester United. I think that's more important than where they finish.
No comparison in terms of the manager, but will Poch get what he wants if he was to go in there? He'll definitely get them playing. He'll definitely have a different style that's more easy on the eye for United. That goes without saying, but will he get what he wants? The problem is bigger than just saying Ole out, Poch in.
You think if he does make Champions League, he does deserve the right then? probably to stay on. The question is, I think we need to see the performance in the final weeks of the season that justify it. They have to see a long-term.
I think if Pochettino's
They won't sack
available-
him. If you get,
Pochettino's available, you'd be crazy not to take him.
even with Champions League, if they get Champions
Even
League
with
football,
Champions League
the
football.
hierarchy United will not sack him.
Probably
No
agree, but
way
I
will they
just
sack
think-
him.
I think
And I think wrongly, but they won't sack him.
I agree.
Okay, next week, he won't be here, but Warren Holton will.
Oh, I'm glad you got me here.
And Adrian Kujumba as well. This has been The Conversation.